For more than 200 years, the village existed on paper as reliably as it existed on the land. It appeared in tax rolls, land grants, church tithes, and regional surveys. Never large, never wealthy, but consistent. A modest settlement, counted and recounted by administrators who rarely bothered to note anything beyond numbers owed and acres tilled. Generation after generation lived, paid, married, and died there. And then, in a single year, the village stopped appearing altogether. There was no marginal note explaining why. No record of destruction. No reference to famine relief or military conscription. 1 year the village paid its taxes. The next year, the legispace where its name should have been was simply blank. At first, historians assumed clerical error. It happened often enough. Borders shifted. Names changed spelling. Villages were absorbed into neighbours. But this disappearance was too clean. The surrounding settlements remained, their boundaries unchanged. The missing village had not been renamed or merged. It had not been reassigned to another jurisdiction. It was simply gone. That mystery might have remained an archival footnote if not for a survey conducted centuries later, when modern archaeologists began mapping abandoned rural sites in the region. Satellite imagery revealed faint geometric patterns beneath layers of soil and vegetation, straight lines where no modern roads ran, rectangular shadows suggesting foundations. When the team cross-referenced the coordinates with historical maps, the impossible connection emerged. They were standing on the land of the vanished village. What they found there unsettled them far more than an empty ledger ever could. The village was intact. Not ruined, not burned, not reclaimed by forest in the chaotic way abandoned places usually are. Houses stood where they had been built, walls upright, roofs collapsed inward rather than torn away. Doors hung open or rested against thresholds, as if left unlatched in a hurry, or with deliberate indifference. Hearths were cold, but blackened with soot from years of use. Cooking pots sat where they had last been set down. A loom remained threaded. Tools lay neatly stacked against walls. In one house, a wooden spoon rested inside a cracked bowl, as though someone had paused mid-meal and never returned. There were no signs of violence. No weapons scattered, no defensive barricades, no burned layers in the soil. The village had not been sacked or evacuated under attack. It had been left. And not hastily, either. Valuables were missing, but not in the way looting leaves gaps. Jewelry boxes were empty, yet still closed. Chests remained, but their contents, coins, heirlooms, documents, had been carefully removed. Clothing hung on pegs, but travel cloaks and boots were gone. This was not flight in panic. It was preparation. As excavation continued, the researchers turned to the cemetery at the edge of the settlement. Here, too, the layout matched expectations. Rows of graves aligned according to local custom, headstones of stone and wood, markers indicating centuries of burials. But when they began recording inscriptions, a chilling pattern emerged. The stones were blank, not weathered beyond legibility, not broken or defaced. The surfaces were smooth, deliberately scraped clean. Where names, dates, prayers, and symbols should have been, there was nothing. Even newer graves, those that, based on stratigraphy, should have been only decades old at the time of abandonment, had been stripped of identity. In some cases, faint tool marks were still visible, as if someone had worked carefully to remove each letter without damaging the stone itself. Wooden markers showed similar treatment, their carved names shaved away. The dead had not been disturbed. Only their names had been taken. This was not the work of vandals. Vandals destroy. This was meticulous, patient, almost reverent. The deeper the investigation went, the clearer it became that the village had not merely been abandoned. It had been erased. Inside the church, or what passed for one, records should have offered clarity. Parish registers, baptismal lists, marriage contracts, these were the backbone of medieval and early modern bureaucracy. Yet the shelves were bare. Not collapsed or rotted, but empty. Wax seals were found on the floor, broken cleanly, as if documents had been unrolled, read one final time, and then removed. Even the altar cloth was folded, not left strewn. Someone had planned this. The question was why. The usual explanations for disappearance, war, plague, environmental disaster, left unmistakable signatures. Plague pits, mass graves, hurried burials. None were present. Drought leaves signs in pollen records and crop remains. Floods scatter debris. Earthquakes crack foundations. Here, the soil layers were calm, uninterrupted. Life had gone on normally until the very end. Even stranger, surrounding villages recorded nothing unusual. No influx of refugees. No sudden population spike. No mention of an entire community arriving together. If the villagers had relocated, they had done so invisibly, or in fragments small enough to escape notice. One theory proposed that the village had been subject to a legal erasure. In certain periods, communities could be dissolved by decree, their land reassigned, their records confiscated. But even in those cases, people did not vanish. Names remained in court cases, in debt ledgers, in neighbouring parish books. Here, the names ended everywhere at once. Another theory suggested religious or cultural self-dissolution, a collective decision to abandon an identity perceived as cursed, sinful, or dangerous. History offers rare but real examples of groups who attempted to start over entirely, shedding names, histories, even family ties. But those groups usually announced themselves loudly. They left manifestos, letters, testimonies. Silence was not their hallmark. This village left nothing of the sort. Instead, what they left behind was absence, crafted absence, intentional and complete. Archaeologists began to notice subtler signs of coordination. All houses appeared to have been vacated within the same narrow time window. There were no signs of long-term decline. No homes falling into disrepair earlier than others. No half-empty structures. The abandonment had been synchronized. Children's toys were gone, but cradles remained. Livestock pens were empty, gates left open. Fields showed evidence of one last harvest, but no planting afterward. Whatever decision had been made, it had been shared by everyone, including the dead. Removing names from graves served no practical purpose. It did not protect property or prevent taxation. It did not ease travel or resettlement. It only erased memory. To scrape away a name is to deny future generations the ability to say, "This person was here." Why would a community choose oblivion? Some researchers believe the answer lies in fear, not of external threats, but of recognition itself. In certain historical contexts, to be named was to be vulnerable. Names tied people to obligations, accusations, heresies, blood feuds, collective punishments. Entire villages could be held responsible for the actions of a few. To disappear as individuals might not have been enough. The village may have believed that only total erasure could guarantee safety. Others suggest something darker, a shared secret, a transgression so profound that survival required not just flight, but denial of existence. If no one could remember who they were, then whatever they had done could not follow them. There is also a quieter possibility, one that unsettles historians most. Perhaps the villagers were not fleeing danger at all. Perhaps they were pursuing something, an idea, a promise, a belief, that required leaving the past behind completely. A deliberate shedding of history, not out of fear, but conviction. We will likely never know. What remains is the village itself, a place frozen not in catastrophe, but in choice. Unlike Pompeii, caught mid-breath by disaster, this settlement paused, exhaled, and stepped away. It denied the future its stories, its names, its lineage. In doing so, it achieved something rare. Most human communities are remembered through fragments, ruins, records, second-hand accounts. This one engineered its own forgetting. It exists only as a question mark, a negative space in history where certainty dissolves. The village erased itself so thoroughly that even now, centuries later, we can walk its streets and know almost nothing about the people who built them. And perhaps that was the point.